All right, now that we've covered a lot of the basic concepts of databases and kind of the basic concepts of SQL, what we're going to do now is move into actual SQL code. But just before we do that, what I want to do is look at an interface, a way of interacting with a very popular SQL database, and that is MySQL. MySQL is used quite a bit, especially when it comes to web apps and web hosting accounts. MySQL is now free and common. You get your basic web hosting, you're going to get a MySQL account. So we're going to jump into that first, and right after that, we're going to get into writing SQL code. And I will be inviting you at that point to actually launch the W3 Schools website, the SQL section, so you can follow along with me. It's very important when you're learning to code any language that you do write code. So take your time at points, pause the video, and actually write out some code and just get used to writing out the SQL code. Anyway, that's it for now. So let's jump into it. Okay, so let's pop open the web browser. The first thing I want to show you is a control panel here. This is cPanel, a very common control panel that you get with hosting accounts, and allows you to do all kinds of different things, including manipulating files in your web directories, adding and creating MySQL databases. This is what we're going to look at here, and a whole bunch of other stuff, email, stats, and so on. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is show you how you have a web interface here with this cPanel tool to basically create databases inside of your hosting account. So I'm going to click on this button, MySQL Databases, and what this is going to bring up is this interface here that allows us to create a database. You see, a database app like MySQL is an app. It's an app, it's a piece of software. It sits there, and it has to be installed, and all your web hosting companies will have this, of course. You can set up on your own computer. There's so many ways that you can install database apps on in terms of your server, in terms of your development, and so on. And I'm not just talking about MySQL, whether it be MySQL, whether it be Postgre, whether it be DB2, any database app. A lot of people will just call database apps database servers, just like web servers, right? Because a database server is sitting there waiting for you to connect to the databases that are installed in the server app. Anyhow, so we're just going to talk about MySQL because it's the most common one out there, and it's pretty similar to all the others. So you got MySQL installed on this particular server here. And so using this web interface by cPanel, I can create databases. And once you create a database, then you can add tables to the database. So let me create a database. I'm going to call it, I don't know, just call it course. No, I'm going to call it something that so stands out. Killer. So because this account in this cPanel app is called HTML Nerve, the way they set up the database is always is prefixed with HTML Nerve. So what does that mean? That means that you can name your database anything you want normally with MySQL, except with cPanel, they have certain restrictions. So this is just a restriction. It's not important that you remember all of this. It's just so that you understand what's going on. So I'm just gonna give it a killer, give it the name of killer. I say create database. Added the database, blah, 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 killer, blah, blah. So we go back, you scroll down here. No, you don't scroll down here, excuse me. Oh, here it is. Database, current databases. So now I have this database HTML nerve killer. That's it. So it's in there, but it has no tables. So let me go back home. So now what we want to do is we have another app, another web app called PHP My Admin. So this is a PHP app that is designed to allow you to communicate with a MySQL database. So I'm just going to click on that. So here it is, PHP My Admin. This is very common, and you can see it's a web page. It's a web app, and you see right here this database I just created, HTML Nerve. So open this up, nothing's there. Look at that. See, so now what we can do with this database selected, I just selected HTML Nerve by clicking on it. It says create a table. So I can create a table. I'm going to call it customers. There's customers table. Number of columns, up and down. So I'm going to say it's going to be 5, but we can edit this later on. Then I just go all the way over here. I hit go. There we go. So we got our columns here. And now you can go in there. Each of these, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, represents this. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. You get the idea, right? So I mentioned that because when I first started using this myself, it was kind of confusing because this was left to right, creating our columns in this app. But, you know, when you actually start using them, they actually appear like this. I know it's kind of weird. It may be a little confusing for now, but just remember each of these, 1, 2, are columns, and they represent these type of columns here. Now, just so you remember, I'm using a spreadsheet here to demonstrate basic concepts. Spreadsheet is not a database. So anyway, so now we can start creating our columns. So let's say I had used the spreadsheet as the basis of for planning my database. I go, okay, product, okay, oh, that's products. Let's go to customers. So here we go. So I get customer ID, customer name, customer. So I can go customer ID. So I go here, I go customer ID. That's the name of the column. Now here's something here we can look at. We can look at all this. Now what is all this here? Type. What does the type have to do with anything? The type has to do with the type of data that's in this particular column. Now what's an int? An int is an integer. Varchar is a bunch of text. And text is like a huge amount of text. Now a date, if you want to track dates in a particular column, I'm not going to get into this now because I have another course where I actually get into this. But essentially, when you're creating your columns in your database tables, you have to tell MySQL what type of information you're holding in this column. Sometimes it could be a number, which is an integer. Sometimes it could be just a limited amount of text, which is varchar. Sometimes it could be a huge amount of text, which is a text type. Sometimes it could be a date. Blah, 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 blah. There's all kinds of things you can do. And then you can set lengths, you can set default values. So let's say you set up a column with a date. You could set the default to be the current timestamp, meaning today, right now. So whenever you create a record for a particular, let's say it was a sale, you would have the database to just add the date automatically, so you don't have to do it in code. There's all kinds of other things you can do. Not null, null, primary index. Now here it is, the index. Ah, yes. I just wanted to go over this very quickly. Now the index tells you whether or not this is the key, the primary key, or the key in the table. Remember I talked about that, the keys, we go back here, like the key. In this case, we decided customer ID would be the key, meaning there could only be one number 1 in this whole table. This way, we're able to track our customers. So what this is asking us, do we want to make this particular column the primary key? And we go, yeah. Now, we call primary because you can have multiple keys in a table. So I'm going a little bit more advanced. So all you have to know, primary, to talk about the primary key. And you can put comments, and you can do all kinds of other things as well. But again, I get into much more detail. We get into much more detail about that in our CRUD video. So just so you know, this is how you would just walk through. You would create different columns. So you would have customer ID. You could have customer name, and you say, well, it's his name, so it's not going to be a number. It's going to be a varchar, and you can set the minimum length. It could be, whatever, 10 characters. It really depends on what you need to do. So this is just one example of how you can interact with a database app. In this case, we're working with MySQL. This is just one example. There are many other apps that you can use to do this. And so as a teacher, it's a choice. It can be a difficult choice in terms of choosing which app to demonstrate with you, because there's so many out there that I may show you, let's say with PHP My Admin, but you may never use it. You may use another tool. So what to take away is the basic principles of that you can have many different apps that can interact and work with a database. Now, I'm not going to go through all this now because, like I said, I do it in another course. I just wanted to show you this basic interface that you can use to create database tables and create a database inside of a database app. So there's another way. You could do it with code. You can actually write raw SQL code to create a table, to do all kinds of different things. So it's yet another way to interact with MySQL. So let me just go back to the W3 schools. And I invite you now to open up the W3 schools. So you go into W3 schools /SQL/SQL_syntax.asp. And now we're going to start exploring some of the SQL statements. And what is an SQL statement? An SQL statement is the code, is the SQL code. So there's tons of SQL statements. There's all kinds of different, right here, you see on the left-hand side, all kinds of interesting things we can do here, all kinds of, these are not all SQL statements, but it teaches you how to really work with SQL. SQL has even built-in functions, just like you have JavaScript functions. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. But we're not going to cover every single thing here because this is a beginner's intro to the subject. But what I want to bring your attention to is something called CRUD. CRUD is right here. CRUD, and CRUD refers to create, read, update, delete. These are the basic operations that you do with a database. You create records, you update records, you select information from the records that's reading them, and you can delete records. And a record, of course, is like a row in a table. This is one record, this is the next record, and so on. So using these basic 4 commands, they call them the CRUD commands, you're able to do all these things, which is 90% of the SQL code and database work you're going to be doing. So let me just scroll down a little bit here. So you see database applications. You see, here's the CRUD: create, read, update, delete. So the actual SQL commands are insert, as in insert a new record, select a record, update a record, or delete a record. Now, it's not just one record. You can select many records. You can update many records. You can do, you can delete many at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to do these basic CRUD operations using the old W3C. Now, I could do it. We could do it by going into, let me just shut this. We can do it by going into cPanel, creating a database, and then doing it within Php My Admin. But not everybody's going to have cPanel. They may have another app, but everybody can access the W3C schools, well, the W3 schools, and try out the various statements here. So let's start off with the very first statement that you're going to do. We're going to do the SQL Select statement. Now, select allows you to read information from a table. So hit try it yourself. And yeah, so this is the basic one that they start you with. Select star from customers. So I'm going to run it, and I'm going to break this down for you, okay? So we run it, and there we go. Here's our customers table. You see how it loaded in nice and quick? Boom, boom, boom. Lots of data, right? So column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 4. Now, sometimes these columns, some nerds will call them fields, as in database fields. So you can decide what you want to call them. I interchange them myself because I'm an old school nerd. So first thing you got to do is we look at the statement. Now it starts with the select statement. Now it could be lowercase. It doesn't have to be uppercase. This will work too. Boom. But the convention in SQL is that your that your SQL keywords like select are uppercase. This allows you to more easily read your SQL code, so you can differentiate between keywords in SQL and data or column names that you're looking to identify. So what does select star mean? Star is, they call it the wild card. Now, it's the same thing in computer languages, same thing even on your operating system. A star selection is basically telling a computer everything. So we're saying in this SQL, select everything from is a keyword, that's why it's capitalized, all caps, customers. Now what's customers? That's the table name. This is the table's customers, right? If we don't want to select everything, we can select the individual columns. So I can go select, let me just uncap that, address. So select address, and that's this column here, address. Watch this, run SQL, boom. See, we only get the addresses now, right? So there you go. Let me go back to select star, so I can see the other column names. So I can select multiple columns at the same time. So I'm going to say I want the customer ID, and I want the customer name, and I want their address. So I'm going to say select customer name, comma, and I want the address from customer. See what happens. There we go. See, customer name, customer address. Notice how, ignore this squiggly underline, that's just the browser auto-correcting for us. Notice how, even though in the table it's capital C, I did lowercase, it didn't affect everything. I can do that here as well. Still works. So we know that this is not case sensitive. Other database apps might be case sensitive. With MySQL, it isn't. Typically, I just like to keep everything consistent. So in our table, when we've created it, if we use camel case, I prefer to use the same camel case just so that it's clear. And that's it. So I'm able to select individual columns at will by just naming a column, first column, second column, and by putting a comma. Now, after your last column here, address, watch what happens. See, error, could not prepare a statement. Oh boy. See, you can't put a comma after your last column if you name individual columns. That's why you got this error here. I won't explain what this error means, but so I'm just, see, that's why you got no results. So when you're naming your individual columns, the last column, you can have a comma here before the keyword from. Remember, now we're saying select the customer name, the customer address from, it could, it's almost like, instead of saying from the table customers, it's just from customers, because you're going to just be, you're selecting from a table, so there's no point in saying from the table customers. So that's pretty good, pretty simple. So again, to see all the tables again, I'm just going to go to star, and I can do all kinds of different operations. So let's say I wanted to select clients only from Mexico. So that's pretty cool. So I'll go select star from clients, where, this is another keyword in SQL, where country, oops, hold on, where country is equal to, and I'm going to go Mexico. See what happens. Boom. Not bad, right? See, only clients from Mexico. So imagine you have thousands of records. You want to know instantly what clients are from Mexico. Bang! You see the value of SQL. You see the value of having databases. Now watch what happens when I take off these quotes, because I'm looking for the value in the country field, right? This is the country table or a country row. I called it field, right? Field and row, column, same thing. Field and column, same thing. And I say Mexico. Now, no quotes. Watch what happens. Oh, could not prepare, another error. So when you're referencing text data in a where, in an SQL where, you have to quote it just like you do in JavaScript to tell SQL that this is actually text data, right? Otherwise, it doesn't know what you're doing. So let's say postal code. You can do it for all of them: postal code, address, whatnot. So this is an example of another capability in SQL, something called the where clause. It allows you to filter your select statements from your tables. So we're saying only bring us the customers, where their country is Mexico. That's pretty simple. Now you can also do a not like this, right? So all of a sudden, it's giving us all the clients in the database table, which is called customers. The table is called customers. And we're saying where the country, remember this is the not operators, means not equal to. So we're saying all clients where the country is not Mexico. So you look at what came back, nobody from Mexico. Every country but Mexico. So you're starting to see the power of just a simple where clause. And this is just one couple of simple examples I'm giving you here. And it's kind of cool. So I would suggest you come here, try it out. Try it out the select, the star, try individual columns, put in the where, try the country, for address or whatnot. And that's going to help you to get more used to the select statement. Pretty cool. So now what we're going to do is go back here. So yeah, semicolon. So you see in the W3 schools, they give you all kinds of commands and details here, but we're not going to cover everything. The idea here is just to give you an overview. So you see the most important SQL commands. Here they are, the most important ones. See, we're going to deal with select, update, delete, and yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to learn about for now. But you see there's a lot. You can actually create an actual database with SQL. You can destroy databases, do all kinds of wacky stuff. So there we go. So let's go to the next page. We'll see what the W3 tells us. Select statement. So we see, as we just covered, you can select the column name, and then the column name. Remember I told you about this? And then from the table. So we did that already, right? We did a select star. We tried it out, our example. Okay, so we did all this. Let's go to the next one. Select distinct. So what is distinct? Distinct allows you to select distinct things from a table. Let me show you what that means. So distinct, we know it's a keyword in SQL, so it's all cap, right? Doesn't have to be, but that's the convention. So we go select distinct city from customer. So just run it, see what happens. So basically what this is doing, it's finding out from our customers database, checking in the cities column and looking for distinct cities. So it's checking out to see which cities are in this column. So you see there is Mexico, DF, and it appeared multiple times, as we know, but because we're using distinct, it's only showing it to us once. This is a type of SQL query. Remember, a query is just a question. This is an SQL query that allows you to figure out very detailed information about, in this case, what cities people are buying from. So this allows you to, you're going to use this in some situations. Distinct is actually used fairly often. Let's say I have an online store and I'm going to say, I just want to know which cities people are buying my products from. If I had 10,000 clients from Mexico, I don't need Mexico to appear 10,000 times. I just need to see it once. And that's what distinct does. See, there we go. I figured out how to say it. So let's, let me just remove that. Do the old star again. Boom. Right? You see all the cities, right? You see with Mexico twice, once, twice, right? Well, actually, it's the city. Mexico DF once, twice. By using distinct, though, we only display it once. We can do select distinct in many different cases. We could do a country as well. So let's do a select distinct. Select distinct, and I'm not going to say country. I'm going to say, it's not city, I'm going to say country from customers. So now it's just going to, so you see Mexico appears twice. What else? I'm sure other countries appear twice. There's France twice, France once, France twice. Now watch with select distinct country from customer. See what happens. There we go. So we see all the countries that have bought our products. And you see how the list is much shorter, right? Because when we don't use distinct, we get all the listings from Canada, all the listings from Switzerland, and so on. So this is where distinct comes in. It's quite useful. All right, let's go to the next one. The where clause. We already covered the where clause. So that's pretty good. So you can go in there and you can start filtering your information. We did this select star from customers where country is equal to Mexico in quotes, right? We did that where, well, I'll do this one here so you can get a different ID. So let's run the SQL. Where customer, see, we got the customer IDs, right? So let's just take out this where. just for the sake of, now you notice there's a semicolon here, right? Now watch this. Take out the where, watch what happens. Okay, no problem. We can put the semicolon in here, still works, it's optional. So we got that, select star from customers. Now let's add that back in, where customer ID is equal 1. This is the customer ID. So we're only gonna have one customer, right? ID, boom. Now you notice 1 is not in quotes, right? And the reason 1 is not in quotes because 1 is an integer, it's being stored as an integer. If I put it in quotes, with an int, the SQL is smart enough to know that even though this is stored as a 1 as an integer, not as a text, it still works. If I put it as a 1, it runs. If I put it in, let's say I want a customer with the ID of 3, it works. So you can see how now we can use the where clause to select not just text, but also select numbers from the database.